The power surge is on.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Baseball Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Baseball Party, your home for the best Atlanta Braves baseball talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me is Jarvis Davis. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. And of course, the Atlanta Baseball Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So in typical Braves fashion this season, one more bat is down for the count. We'll discuss, but as the team continues to fight for their playoff lives, there is one constant that continues to deliver. We'll talk about that too. But first, let's talk about how MH2 revived the phrase, Mets are going to Met, at least for one more night. The Atlanta Braves sent a clear message in their series opener against the New York Mets Tuesday. The Braves won 5-1 with Michael Harris II absolutely putting on a show at the plate and in the field. So for you, seeing a Michael Harris II that obviously defensively, he has just been that guy, even when his bat wasn't what we thought it would be. But last night, the bat was batting.
The bat was batting. The power surge is on with P. Like, I get so excited. I don't know if you can tell or not when I get a chance to talk about Michael Harris in this light, because obviously dealing with the soft tissue injury, being out for so long, for 2 months, and just having to deal with that and wait on him to come back. And obviously with Ronald Acuna being out, he's the guy that you tab, like, hey, this is the leadoff guy that you need in that spot. So for him, like, he's been absolutely killing the T in the month of September. When you think about a 337 batting average, 8 home runs, and the OPS over 1, this dude has hit twice as many home runs as any other Brave in that time period. So when you think about it from that aspect, you're like, okay, this dude is not only showing the pop that nephew Ronnie shows at that leadoff spot, he's outshining him from a defensive perspective. And it was just so cool just seeing him stealing one from Luis Angel last night, Ronald Acuna's brother. And you saw when he caught the baseball, he's just sitting on the ground, just like, nope, it's not going down like that today. So yeah, when I see a guy like Michael Harris doing what he's doing, it just makes me happy, because I just know this cat is he's on one, and it is like Brian Snicker said, it's perfect timing.
Exactly. Like when you know how we talk about the phrase, or we say the phrase, man, so-and-so is money. Like, okay, he's earning his nickname. I mean, he is really earning his nickname of Money, of Money Mike, like no question, at the most important time, because like you said, that leadoff spot, once Ronald Acuna Jr. went down, it was really kind of a back and forth. Like there were moments where Jared Kelenic looked like he was going to be that guy at the leadoff, and then it just kind of was something he couldn't sustain. And then obviously we've seen Michael Harris II in that spot before, so we knew he could do it, but then ends up going out on injury. And of course, we'll talk about that, because that continues to be a storyline that we've talked about the entire season. But on a good note, like you said, seeing what Michael Harris II was able to do last night in 4 at bats, and to get 3 hits and to get 2 RBI, to get a home run, and the fact that in a season of nothing but conversation around inconsistency, to see that consistency in him, and the fact that he's been able to hit the way he is. And I don't want to get this stat wrong, but I heard a stat last night and I was driving, so I was like, darn it, I couldn't write it down. But he's done something in, I want to say, the last 14 games that only 7 Braves have done since 1900. And it's a stat that Ronald Acuna Jr. is actually not on that list of. And it may be something like in the last 14 games, he's had 7 hits, or vice versa. In the last 7 games, he's had 14 hits. But whatever the case, it is the most powerful thing. Even the broadcasters were blown away at the fact that MH2 was on the list, and not even Ronald Acuna Jr. was on.
I think it was 3+ hits. I think it was 3+ hits in consecutive games. Yeah.
No, it was a 7-14. Now that part I know. I heard 7-14. I just don't know if I heard 7 hits in 14 games of 14-7. But I know our people will probably tell us in the comments for the show. But it was just amazing to me that it was something that has only been done by seven players since 1900. And like you said, this is one of those times where maybe more than any other time this season, the Braves absolutely have to see players do things that are out of this world, do things that are miraculous and uncharacteristic or unseen in order for this team to just crack the postseason. Speaking of that, I know
So
for me
before
last
before we move
week, go ahead.
before we move
Yeah.
on real quick, T, gotta add another. I gotta mention his name, Matt Olson. He has been absolutely tearing it up too because he has a majors leading 54 RBI since July 27 and was tied for fourth with 16 home runs. Entering Sunday, the last the
Mhm.
series series finale against the Miami Marlins. So he's the guy. He's now, right there at 30 and 100, 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. And when you think about where he was
Yeah.
going into that first half of the season, where I think he was in like hitting like 226 and only had 13 home runs. So for him to be doing what he's doing in this second half of the season, it just kind of says, okay, all right, here's Matt. This is the Matt that we know. Everybody can calm down and just relax a little bit and kind of understand, like, all right, this is the guy that they brought in, and it's just been cool to see him kind of come right along with that with MH2 as well.
Yeah. Imagine that part of it has been thinking of the acquisitions last season and Matt Olson and Sean Murphy being the biggest. And then
Yep.
this year, you just have not seen Sean Murphy be that guy. But obviously, he's just
Yeah, he's
not that.
struggling.
His body's
Yeah.
just not right. So then, yeah, you're automatically looking at Matt Olson and saying, okay, you were the other big acquisition. Like, when
We
are you
need you.
going to show up? Yeah, exactly. When are you going to show up? When is
Yeah.
that guy that we said so long to Freddie Freeman for? When is that Matt Olson going to show up? And again, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it is kind of nice to see that Matt Olson seems to have returned at the perfect time. And speaking of returns, I can remember seeing the tweet, basically one of those "he's back" tweets about uh, Ozzie Albies when we found out last week that he was finally returning and that he came back last Friday, if you will. And just to see that return, obviously, which was against the Marlins, and then to see him go yard like for the first time since coming back from injury, I think that was so important too. Because Jarvis, as you know, as a former athlete, sometimes whether in your case it's just getting a tackle or in his case getting a home run, getting that first piece of something big, something that you always do really does kind of level set, not just for you, but for this team. Because I've always said Ronald Acuna Jr. is your best player, but Ozzie Albies is your most important.
No doubt about it. And when you think about the way he's come back, right? Because he's naturally a switch hitter. That's
Yeah,
that's what he's known. That's what he's used to. That's what he's comfortable with. And then for him to have to come back and just hit right-handed
and yeah,
now, because normally we used to see him seeing batting right-handed against the lefty,
yep, and
batting
vice
left-handed
versa.
against the right. So you got to think from a mental standpoint. I can just only imagine like the mental that he going through, and I think for him to see that ball go out of the park against the Marlins, I'm sure he had a like, whew, all right, now let's get it going. So I think for in that aspect, that was the real cool thing to see because like it's an adjustment coming back from injury, regardless, especially
Yes,
within in
that
season
paper,
because
yeah,
yeah, because I've done that before. Because there's the pressure to get back, and hey, can you get back? Can you go? What's your pain
yeah,
tolerance and all that stuff? It's
yeah.
just like, all right, my team needs me. So all those things, all of those thoughts are going through your head, and like I said, I've been there before, and I understand what that means. So for him to come back and have to make a whole adjustment to his game or a 50% adjustment, depending on how you look at it, it kind of I know that felt good to him and it felt good to me to see it because I know that's going to help him. These last 5 games are going to be so crucial, and Ozzie Albies has to be on point in order for them to continue to get there.
Indeed. Now, as the Braves continue to fight for their playoff lives, there is one constant that continues to deliver. And Jarvis and I are also going to talk about the reality of whether or not they can deliver to get where we know we want them to get come next week. We'll get into it in Going Deep. This episode of the Atlanta Baseball Party is brought to you by Booking.com and FanDuel. Now, Booking.com, yeah, that's right. That's the right stay that can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rival. So, again, book today on Booking.com, which is the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Now, you can explore cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't think that this city is going to necessarily make a trip out to New York per se. No trip to Queens, but maybe you want to make a trip to Philly with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rivals' city, and hopefully even during the postseason. Now it's time to test rather your baseball competition stadium cuisine. Maybe luckily on Booking.com, you can find that stadium stay that's just right for you because Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay. So be sure that you check out Booking.com, Booking.yeah, even against your baseball rivals, because that is the best way to get the optimal opportunity to not just go to that city on the low, but also to get some really good deals in advance. So don't forget, it's Booking.com. Get that app today, download that app today, and make sure that you go to Booking.com, Booking.yeah to make the right stay in that city. Now, our Atlanta Baseball Party is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season big with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now, we know that we are 3 weeks into the season, but it's still kind of early. And now that you're kind of getting your feet wet and kind of understanding what your team, the Falcons, are able to do, it's a big game coming up Sunday against the Saints, big divisional matchup. And you might get a hunch in the middle of that game about what you want to do as far as going to FanDuel. You can actually then check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. So you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first bet. So make sure you go to FanDuel.com to get that, take advantage rather of that deal. There's a big return on FanDuel for NFL fans. Again, get a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. But most importantly, get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that first bet at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. So I think we have officially coined him Schwelly because Jarvis, I know that as long as a player does what he's supposed to do, he keeps his nickname on Atlanta Baseball Party. So Spencer Schwellenbach did the thing. He's really not just done it for the Braves one time, but it's been really this entire season. Another one of those Alex Anthopoulos jewels that we were able to pull up from the minors and get him to pay big dividends in the majors. That said, he, of course, continued to prove what he's able to do with 7 innings of lights out pitching, 4 strikeouts, and he only gave up 1 run last night. So I think it's safe to say that he has probably secured a spot in this Braves rotation and earned that spot as well.
Oh, for sure. This is quintessential Alex Anthopoulos' philosophy. Hey man, more than likely we're probably gonna lose our guy, but hey, guess what? I'm gonna
Right.
trade for a Cy Young winner, presumably, in the NL and Chris Sale. And also I get a guy that, start the season off in high A, who's gonna come
Yeah.
in and do
Right.
great things for us. He's
Great
gonna get
thing.
20 starts and 122 strikeouts, which is the most in franchise history through a pitcher's first 20 career appearances. So yeah, that is pretty doggone good work for Schwelly. Yeah, like that name is going to stick, I feel, as long as it's possible. Because and when you think about the way he's doing it, we've gotten used to all these power pitchers. Everybody talking about high velocity, throwing 100 miles per hour and all that good stuff. Now, granted, he has a fastball probably hit 97, 98, but
Mhm.
doggone it, when you have your opponents talking about, hey, this guy is big on location. He knows how to locate his fastball. That means he has control on where the ball is going, or he knows where the ball is going, and he's trying to pose what the hitter is looking for and
Mhm.
what he wants to give them. So I feel like when he's doing it like that, at this early of an age, that
Mhm.
is scary to you. We're talking about a
Yeah.
guy who played shortstop up until his senior junior year at Nebraska. So when you think about it from that aspect, it's just like, okay, all right, Alex Anthopoulos has done it again. Let's go ahead and get that out the way. And the Braves are now have a young guy that they can count on, going hopefully to push to go into the playoffs.
Yeah, and the maturity that he has shown as well, because when you look at the game log, you look back at the last 5 games, he got roughed up in the Toronto Blue Jays game about 2.5 or so weeks ago, right? And did have a
Mhm.
loss right before that, but it was still a solid outing for him because he still went 5 2/3 and just gave up a couple runs. But what I wanted to say about him that was most impressive for me is after getting roughed up like that, he at least comes back in that next game against the Dodgers, his next start, and he pitches 5 innings and excuse me, 6 innings. Let me not short him. And he only gives up 2 runs. Comes back again against the Cincinnati Reds. And we all know for whatever reason, the Braves have had their troubles with the Reds this season. He then goes
Weirdoville.
another, yeah, right, exactly. He's like triggered.
What's
Yeah,
going on?
yeah, he goes 6 innings again. This time only gives up 1 run and then turns around last night in a most critical game because you do want to start that Mets series off making a statement. He then goes 7 innings, only gives up the 1 run, and then ultimately gets his 8th win of the season. And like we said, it's so important because that was that win that you needed to get yourself back in position, be 1 game back in the chase for the NL wild card spot because and you've been up and down. So of course, all eyes are on will you come out of the gates and make a statement so that you can at least put the Mets on their heels in your own stadium? And the Braves did that, but we know the inconsistency. It is what it is. And especially of late, the Braves have absolutely driven us, as our parents would say, bat-ish crazy. That's
Mhm.
that's who they've been. So it's still kind of you're excited about the 5-1 win, but then you can't help yourself. You kind of look and you say, okay, good win against the Marlins, good win against the Marlins, but bad loss to the Marlins as well. And it
Mhm.
makes you kind of wonder, all right, are you still concerned, Jarvis, on whether or not they can get it done to get into the postseason, whether getting it done means winning the series against the Mets, best case scenario, sweeping the Mets, and then going ahead and taking care of business against the Royals to get over the hump and get to the postseason.
Yeah, because here's the thing. One thing, like we talk about the consistencies and the consistent inconsistencies.
Yeah,
This season, the one thing that was being is that pitching, right? We just talked about
yeah,
Swellenbach and how he's come up in big games, like you said, against the Dodgers, and then shoot, he gave up his first run against the Mets on Tuesday night.
yeah.
So, and he had like a 15 strikeouts in 14 innings. I think a .46 ERA against the Mets, who've been
The best team in
surging.
baseball
Like
in the
they've
second
been
half.
surging.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been
Well, that's the
surging.
best, yeah, best record in baseball since the break. So,
Yeah, when
yeah.
you think about it from that aspect, like that's huge. And I think that when now we couple this with Michael Harris on fire, you
Mhm.
talk about and Matt Olson doing his doggone thing. And then, when you think about it from that aspect and combining that pitching consistency with the power surge, like
Yeah.
Georgia Power is back on. Like I know it took him a long time to answer, and you know how Georgia Power is in real life too. So when you think about it from that aspect, those two things right there combined gives me comfort to say,
Yeah.
because even though they had that ugly game against the Marlins on Friday, they
Mhm.
still won a series. They
Yeah.
won a series against the Cincinnati Reds, even though coupled with another ugly game in that series as well. So when you think about it from that aspect, they won 2 consecutive series when they knew they had to get it
Yeah.
done, and now they won that opener, and now we got that dude coming on the mound. I know we're gonna get into that a little bit later on, but so yeah, I'm saying all that to say I am super confident that they can get into the playoffs, T, because like I said, I'm not saying that they're back because I don't want them to go back. Because right now, in this moment, I'm in the moment right now, T, and I'm saying that they are raring to go if they
Yeah.
can keep this up for sure.
Yeah, I was having a conversation just before the show about another super hot team in baseball, the Detroit Tigers. And one of the
Mhm.
questions that I had was, hey, do you think the Braves are going to make it? And I said, yeah. I said, they showed us something last night that makes me encouraged. I like their chances against the Kansas City Royals and obviously to win the series against the Mets if you start getting into a situation where you're kind of looking at head-to-head competition. And if there's any type of tiebreaker situation, all of those things start working in the Braves' favor. And I said, also, the Braves don't have the daunting task that the Mets do. They've got to face the Brewers, and the Brewers are still one of the better teams in baseball. And I believe the Mets are going to the Brewers as well. So I kind of like their chances because the Brewers still have something to fight for as far as positioning in the postseason. So that means the Brewers are going to bring all their guns. So if the Brewers do their job and they take care of business, and then the Braves do their jobs and take care of business, do their jobs to take care of business against the Mets as well as the Royals, I do feel very confident, like you, not overly confident, not trying to say we think that they are those Braves, but just saying based on what we're seeing and based on what the final week of this season looks like, we do have, I think, some genuine and some well founded confidence that the Braves can get it done. And we can be having a conversation next week about the Braves in the postseason. But as good as this conversation has been, and as many things as we've said on this show about optimism and things to be excited about the Braves in typical Braves fashion this season, there is one more bat that's down for the count, and we will talk about it in the stretch. This episode of the Atlanta Baseball Party is brought to you by Game Time. So think about this. Game Time has a new feature. We all like brand new toys, shiny toys, right? It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets because anybody got time for that. So one thing that I like about them as well is that they have seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And I like the fact that there's a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And finally, ticket coverage. How many times does something happen at the last minute and you just have to eat what you paid for that ticket? Well, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry using Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. After you finish watching our Atlanta Baseball Party, go ahead and download that Game Time app today, because what time is it? It's game time. So, unfortunately, Jarvis, as much as we've been in the happy place for the show today, we also know that there's some bad news that came down the pipeline that we were hoping we wouldn't hear, but we got. That is Austin Riley. Done for the season, done for the postseason. Brian Snitker confirmed that the CT scan of his broken hand showed it's not healed enough to remove that cast just yet. And Snit said that it's also not enough time for him to heal and get ready once the cast is removed. So, hearing that news Monday, does that just unfortunately go along with what the Braves have had to deal with all season, which is, like our parents used to say, it feels like sometimes you go one step forward and two steps back.
Yeah, it is, because that's the thing that kind of is disheartening because of Austin Riley and who he is and what he brings to the team. And it just sucks. You know how I feel like the guys are just, and I don't have to run through the list because we talked about it ad nauseum on
Yes.
this show, and I don't want to get even more depressed because, like I said, it's
Right.
been a good upbeat show so
Yeah.
far for,
Right.
for today. And I'm just glad you guys are checking us out here on the Atlanta Baseball Party on Locked On Sports Atlanta. But I think the thing that kind of eases my, a little my sadness, because you gotta deal, it is what it is. There's nothing you can
Yeah.
do about it. But I think that Gio Urshela, uh, who a guy who just basically came out of nowhere, and you think when he was playing for the Detroit Tigers, it's just like, oh, okay, all right, they got somebody to bring him in, and he started wowing us with his glove. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
defensively, yeah, we know he's good. But now, these last 10 games, he has an OPS of 965, a batting average of 333. He had back-to-back home runs and back-to-back games against the Miami Marlins. And, he had done that once in his career. So yeah, when you start seeing those type of things, so it's amazing. It's just so amazing. And almost kind of like when defensive linemen start getting sacked, one guy started getting sacks, and all of a sudden everybody look around, everybody else start getting sacks. They want to join the party, right? So it seems like MH2, Matt Olson, him getting on fire. Now you got Marcelo Zuna killing it. You got Jorge Soler, he's on the heater, and now Gio Urshela is joined the party as well. So even though it's super sad for us to see Austin Riley be done and no potential for him to come back is zero. It's good to see that his replacement is doing just fine, just like Boys to Men. Sorry.
Yeah. If you know Jarvis is always going to come down to a song. There you have it.
Right.
There you have it.
Now it's going to be in your head for the rest of the day. Yes.
Exactly. So if it's going to live rent free in my head, Atlanta Baseball Party family, it better live rent free in your head too. Because it's not fair if it can't, traumatize the rest of us.
It's a very nice song, by the way. Yes.
That's it. And it's interesting that you bring up Gio Urshela, because I was going to ask you how the loss of Riley ultimately impacts these Braves. And I feel the same way. Like, it does have an impact because Austin Riley is that guy. Similarly, when we talk about a Ronald Acuna Jr. or before Ozzie Albies got back, etc., and of course Spencer Strider, you don't necessarily replace one-to-one. But that's not necessarily what you're looking for. You got one half of what you needed for Riley's replacement on the defensive side. And then you finally got the offense to pick up. And hey, there's a pleasant surprise. Last 7 days, 25 at bats, and you get 11 hits. We'll take that. You get 6 RBI. We'll take that. Only 4 strikeouts. We'll take that too. Because again, anything that you can do that will replace the offensive productivity of Austin Riley, the offensive production, you'll absolutely take it. And hopefully, like you said, take it and see it kind of peaking at the right time, which obviously in these last 5 games that the Braves have to hopefully get them into the postseason, they're getting exactly what they need from Gio Urshela and also some other places. Speaking of which, the one place where they've gotten it consistently and they hope to continue to get that is from the pitching rotation. And even the if I can just take a quick step back and a sidebar, because you and I laughed so hard about this, we got to tell our family. We were talking about the game last night and how, yes, Spencer Schwellenbach did his thing. The Braves got it done at the plate, but also it was the darn bullpen, because I literally was sitting in my car, and as I'm pulling up, the bottom of the 8th is a wrap. And I'm like, okay, I can get upstairs before this game ends. I'm sure the Braves are going to win. They'll hold serve at 5-1 and we're done. By the time I got upstairs, computer was already on, Jarvis. All I had to do was sit in my office. Final 5-1. I was like, dang, homies. Like Joe Jimenez and Raisel Iglesias, like, we're ready to go home. So you got to give a shout out to the bullpen, because they have also been a big reason why the Braves have been able to keep their heads above water and fight to get in the postseason.
Yeah, like I was actually kind of searching around. I was like, I wonder if they got like a closer of the year award. I know there was one that was named the Mariano Rivera, excuse me, in the American League, and I'm just like, yeah, he has to be on that, on that list. Like, if it's not, that would be a travesty, because Raisel Iglesias has been so valuable for this team, and then you're talking about having 2-inning closing out games, with going pitching 2 innings, and I think he's done that maybe like 6 times this year, I believe, if I remember correctly. So yeah, with that aspect of it, this is a guy who provides a lot of value. And I remember when the Braves got him in the trade, people weren't really checking for him like that. Like, Raisel Iglesias, all right, okay, but he has been that dude. He's had his moments, but overall, this guy has been that guy, and I think that he should be in consideration. And Joe Jimenez is just he's been so lights out. Like, it's not even worth mentioning in this conversation, because like, we just know what to expect from him. He's one of those guys for sure.
Right. And to say that you and I have had a conversation on the baseball party and even on the sports party. Maria, you and I have had the conversation where we talked over and over and over for the entirety of August and for most of September about Raisel Iglesias. And listen, when you look at his game log, that's when it's kind of like mind blowing, because you look down the home run column and you just see zero after zero after zero after zero. That tells you how dominant he has been in closing games out for this Braves team. Now, speaking of that, you've got the game two, and obviously we know that we're dealing with crazy weather. We don't know kind of how things are going to turn out here in Atlanta Metro and for the state of Georgia overall. So we know that Chris Sale is set to take the mound for game two of this series, but we honestly don't know if he's going to get a chance or not. Here's my question to you, though, because sometimes you're in a rhythm, and he'd already gotten an extra day that Brian Singer gave him so that he didn't start game one, starting game two. But how do you feel about the fact that if this game is a no-go today, how that might impact not just Chris Sale, but also, dare I ask you, the offensive momentum that we saw from the Braves in this first game?
Well, I'll answer the question with a question. How did they feel when they were on the heater last year going to the playoffs and they had to take a week off? They were like,
Right.
what we gonna
What
do?
we do? Yeah.
Snit like,
Simulate
when you think about, right, we're
yeah.
gonna play some simulated games. No, as much as you think that's gonna work, it's cool from a outside perspective. Like, all right, we're doing something, we're simulating games, we're doing all that, but it's nothing like the real thing, especially when you're in times where essentially you have 5 playoff games already. Like, this is what it is. This is
Oh,
not
yeah.
regular season games. These are playoff atmosphere vibes right now. So when you think about having potentially not playing it, hopefully they do get it in, but you think about potentially that being the case and those guys have to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about MH2. I'm worried about Matt Olson. I'm worried about Jorge Soler. I'm worried about
Yeah.
Marcelo Ozuna. It's like, hey, man, how can you keep this thing going, man?
Yeah.
Like, go to the batting cage or something. But,
Yeah.
it's like I said, but it's nothing like getting out there and being in that real atmosphere, playoff type vibe, especially at Truist Park. Those are
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that I get concerned about. But I feel like, hopefully it would only be one game,
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like they should be fine. But yeah, it's like you talking about a week. Oh my God, because baseball players are so creatures of habit. So when you
Mm-hmm.
think about having to kind of get out of that for at least for 24 hours or whatever, or 12 hours, or however you want to look at it, I
Mm-hmm.
think that can definitely be concerning.
Yeah, and then you kind of look at that pushing up against the possibility of kind of crunching them back into the series with the Kansas City Royals. Now, the good thing is you're home, so at least you're not traveling in that space. But yeah, you kind of hope they get it done today, just if for no other reason, because they're creatures of habit and the rhythm is what it is, and we want to keep that rhythm that way for the Braves. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Baseball Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Braves for your second listen, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also are free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you on the Atlanta Sports Party Thursday.